So, good evening. Thank you all for coming. And we want to talk about tonight a little bit about what one can do to hasten, or not necessarily hasten, but make sure that they can easily find their other half. The reason why I'm saying hasten, because many people, they can't wait any longer and they want it to be imminent. But nevertheless, we will talk about tonight that sometimes hasting something is not necessarily the solution, but rather we want to wait for the right moment, and needless to say, for the right person. Unfortunately, in our generation, and we spoke about it yesterday, there are many that are struggling with finding their other half. And we spoke about it yesterday in the class about Mashiach and the redemption, that it was already prophesied that before Mashiach will come, one of the problems of the generations will be that people will find it very difficult to get married, to find their other half. So I can't testify for the past, but I know in our generation, and at least in the last 20, 30, 40 years, it is very difficult for many people to find their other half. And needless to say, this is one of the most inconvenient challenges that one needs to go through. And comes an age when a person is ready to get married and they're wishing to find their other half quickly, and not only quickly, to find the Prince Charming or the, I don't know what you say for the ladies, but princess, whatever they call it. But nevertheless, this is one of the first problems with looking for the other half, is that we have a very high raft of expectations, and usually it's out of proportions. Baruch Hashem, we have in Israel 2 institutes, Torah institutes, one for ladies and one for men. So by default, it's very natural that we're trying constantly to match one another. And many of the students, when they come, whether they approach me or my wife or some of the spiritual leaders in our institutes, then I look at the list of demands or the requirements, and that's completely out of proportion. Not too long ago, some individual came and we sat down, and I told him, okay, well, what are you looking for in a wife? If you ask me to help you find your wife, what are you looking? So he gave me such a detailed list, and at first I was very uncomfortable telling him that, but I knew that he needs to hear it straight out, and I told him, I'm sorry to tell you, but this creature doesn't exist. So stop looking, because you'll never find something like that. And this is another problem, is that when we grow up, the level of expectations is growing and growing and growing. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter, it's almost irrelevant at this point why, but the level of expectations is not what one needs to look for, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, but more in a spiritual part of it. But also comes another problem, that the environment and society are feeding us from a very early stage what we think marriage is about, and what do we think that relationships are about, and we grow up with a very distorted way of thinking of what marriage is. For example, when I grew up, for me marriage, I took as an example from movies. And movies, they don't show you real life. Movies show you a couple holding hands and they're walking into the sunset, and he whispers to her, I love you. And she, So this only works in Hollywood, by the way. It doesn't work in real life. And unfortunately, we are slaves. And not only that we are slaves, we are a victim of the movie industry and many other industries. Now it's a little bit changed, because we are also victims to social media and advertising and all this brainwashing type media, that we are fed what my standards should be, and there's no real education what's a real marriage is about. Nobody will come to tell you in movies that marriage is about working on yourself and refining yourself and building the ability in yourself to be able to nourish another person. People come to marriages with only demands, what I want to get from this marriage, and nobody comes to a date with a mind frame is, how can I make that person's life better? It usually is how that person will make my life better. And I blame a lot on it, on society and the environment that we live in. And many people will maybe disagree, but if you grew up watching movies and TV shows and romances and books or whatever it is, then the idea of marriage is completely distorted. Nobody ever told me when I was young that marriage is hard work. And marriage is living with a woman that usually, and I'm not saying it in a hurtful way, will be the one who's going to drive me the most crazy. That's usually the case. Nobody told me that. I mean, I love my wife dearly, but she's my other half, and therefore she knows all the right buttons where to press to get me completely out of balance. Not because she's mean, chas v'shalom, because she is the other half. But when I was young, I thought that marriage is about holding hands and sitting on a beautiful romantic beach and all this nonsense that doesn't exist. This maybe exists in the first 2 weeks of dating, and that's it. And then once you go under the chuppah, that's it, story's over. You are locked. So, Baruch Hashem, I've had the zchut and the merit to be in many, many weddings, and you see always the excitement in the wedding, and I'm always standing in the side and saying, I don't know why you're so excited, but life is about to begin. The moment you smash that cup, as the famous Jewish joke is that this is the last time you're going to put your foot down. So, but nevertheless, it's a problem because I was also at a very late age. I mean, not very late. I considered it late. I was in the, so to say, the dating scene when I was 28, 29. I thought it was very late. Later on, I saw that it's actually pretty young. But nevertheless, I also experienced it on myself. And my attitude when I was going to dating was completely different. And I think that's why I found my wife like that. Because my attitude was completely different, and we're going to talk about it later on. But first we have to understand a few things. That we're going to look at both spiritual and the physical aspects of the reality in my life when I'm approaching to find my other half. And I always like starting first with a spiritual aspect, because if I know how to enter through the back door and to go straight to the source, then I have a better chance of understanding the situation and also changing the situation. And the Holy Book of Zohar teaches, specifically in Parashat Lech Lecha, that it says that the desire for me to get married, for any person to get married, is because I am possessing only half of a soul. If I would have a whole soul, I wouldn't look at any other person, or I wouldn't have any desire to marry, because technically when you're thinking about it, sometimes I have a lot of people, they come to me and they cry, whether with tears or just with words, how hard it is to be single and so forth. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, you're such a fool. You by yourself. Nobody's making a mess in your home. Nobody's driving you crazy. You're able to do whatever you want. And I sometimes I envy you. Of course, I'm not going to say that to a person. Don't step on somebody's toes when they're in pain. But we all have this built-in desire to find my other half, to build a home, only because I am only half of a soul. And before the soul comes down to this world, the soul gets, so to say, cut in half. And there's a female part of the soul and the male part of the soul. And right before the person is ready to be born, the soul is about to take the plunge down. It goes through a certain process, and one of the last parts of this process is that a certain angel comes and he cuts the soul in half. And one part of the soul jumps into the female, another part of the soul jumps into the male. And it doesn't mean they have to born in the same day. Sometimes they can be born in a difference of 10, 15 years. And usually in completely different places in the world. Very rarely, I mean, I'm not saying it's not an option, but very rarely it's around the corner. And sometimes it's somebody that lives next to you for all your life. But nevertheless, the soul is built from two components, and it falls into the female and into the male, and then part of the soul is by the man and part of the soul is by the woman, and therefore we have this strong drive and the strong desire to find my other half. Now, The Zohar says that if I have the merit, then I do find my other half. And if I don't have the other merit, why would I won't have a merit? Is because I go down in my spiritual level as a result from my sins. If I go down from my level as a result from my sins, then what's going to happen is, if my other half is higher than me spiritually, I'm never going to find her. Or him too. I mean, I can't say him. I don't want people to start thinking all sorts of weird things about me. But if I have gone down in my level, and it can only be from sins, and my other half is higher than me, I will not find her. And what's going to happen is that if I do find, it's not my real other half. I will be, so to say, matched with another soul based on my level, and that's not going to be my other half. And then that you see that many people, they have the merit, they do marry their other half, the real other half. It's not a saying, it's not just a slang, it's the other half of the soul. And that's what you see many times, and I'm just giving different scenarios, don't take it black and white, it's not always the case, but you see many times that a couple will be married, they can be married for 10 years, 20 years, then they get divorced, and then get remarried again, and could very much be that the second marriage is the real marriage. And sometimes you see it's the other way around, and sometimes one of the spouse dies, and then the second marriage could be the real other half. Can be so many different scenarios, and I just specifically don't want to talk about it because people take it very literally, and then they start saying, oh my God, so that's the second marriage, and this is this, and this and that, and there's no rules here. But nevertheless, I'm just laying down a foundation that if the person has the merit, they will find their other half, and usually it will come fast and quick and right away with no much difficulties. And if chas v'shalom, and again, don't take it as a black and white that, oh my gosh, if I'm 10 years looking for my other half, and it means that maybe I'm lower or higher. But in general, if they don't find the other half very fast, one of the ways of looking at it, that one is in a higher level spiritually than the other one. I always give the same example, that when I got married, we were a group of friends that we all kind of got married in the same time. And within about a year, all the couples got married. And there was one girl that didn't get married. And nothing was wrong with her. She was attractive, she was brilliant, she was funny, she was easygoing. I mean, literally, if I would look at her, there's nothing wrong with her. Really nothing wrong with her. Nothing that you can point and say she's boring, she's annoying, she's coming from a broken family, she has issues. On the external part, and we knew her very well, she looked like a very normal, above average individual. She couldn't get married. She was the only one. Every time we would go to weddings, she would be the one who sits by herself. Every event, she was by herself. Shabbat meals, whatever it was, and nobody understood why she can't get married. Years have passed. Of course, she relocated, trying to find probably her other half in a different place. As they say, Meshaneh makom, meshaneh mazal letova. You change your place, you change your mazal, which we're going to talk about this mazal very soon. Mazal is not luck that you have in the casino when you're rolling the dice. It's not the mazal that we're talking about. But nevertheless, years have passed and we kind of lost contact with her. About maybe 4+ years before I moved to Israel, I moved to California. I lived in Los Angeles. Okay, one day my wife tells me, don't ask who we're going to have Shabbat meal by. I'm like, oh. She tells me the name. Wow, we're going for a Shabbat meal. And she tells me, and don't ask, she's married. Oh, Baruch Hashem, what amazing news. Okay, we go, can't wait to see. Wow, what was the story? We come to meet an amazing man, tall, broad, handsome, has an amazing career, very, very polite and courteous, and seems such a gentleman, helping around, and they had a kid, so he was holding the baby all the time. Seemed like wow, this is like the Mr. Perfect. Okay, as we going through the meal, we're talking, and of course, my wife and me are dying to hear what's going on here. What was the story? Long story short, is that he became observant. She was, of course, fully observant when we were, at the time when she was around us. He became observant maybe 2 years before that day that they got married. And the whole entire time when she was looking to get married, when she went to Matchmakers or whatever services she used, whether it was a website or a matchmaker or what, she was looking for an observant man. And he was on some beach in India. I don't know what he was doing there, and it doesn't really matter. But she was here and he was here. So she couldn't find. So every person she went on a date, she looked, no, that's not the one. And right away, and of course people saying, okay, maybe she's picky, maybe she's this, maybe she's that. No, she wasn't. She was actually on top of her game and saying, this is not the person. And finally, when Mr. Perfect decided to get his act together, and he became observant, suddenly he became on the list. And that's it. And it took her maybe 12 years that she wasn't growing younger. She's our age. She waited and waited. And finally he came at the right time. So this is a perfect proof that when one is in a higher level, spiritual level, than the other, will become a difficulty to find the other half. Because if you are observing Shabbat, and you follow the laws of Kashrut, and you dress in a very modest way, or you learn Torah half a day, whatever it is, and you're holding a certain level, and your other half is lower, you're not going to find him or her. And needless to say, if you lower, and that person is in a higher place. So the Zohar says that if a person goes down in their level, and it doesn't matter right now, they were born observant, became not observant, was born secular, became observant, it doesn't matter. If a person is lower in their spiritual level, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, is waiting patiently for the person to step it up. He will wait and wait and wait and wait, and at some point, if the other person cannot wait anymore, then Kadosh Baruch Hu will match another person that is not the other half, and they will get married. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to have a good marriage. They might have a good marriage, they're going to be matched according to their level, according to their needs, according to what their tikkun is. And yes, I know it sounds very sad, but one can live their entire life not with the real other half. And again, don't think it means it's going to be a bad marriage. It can be a very good marriage. Just that instead of going with partner number one, you went with partner number two, and you still achieve what you're supposed to achieve. So first of all, very, very important is that, of course, I want to meet my true other half, what is called from the root of my soul. And I'm sure you met many times situations when people pray for another person and they say you should meet your other half, but from Shoresh Nishmato, from the root of your soul. Why? Because it wanted to be the other half. But if not, then you have to do a certain tikkun in this world. Now, can you really know who's your really other half? No. And you'll never know. I don't think that there's a way to know that. I know a lot of people come and tell me, or I know they go to different rabbis and they say, can you say if that's really my other half? And if it's not, you're not going to get married, you're going to wait another 40 years. There's one very famous rabbi in Israel, I don't want to say his name because you're going to call him tomorrow. And he first of all, he's a grandson of a very big tzaddik, and he's a tzaddik himself, and he knows by the names. Sometimes he matches names, and he can tell it's a very good shidduch. He will never tell you yes, no, whatever, but the point is there are ways to see if the match is very well, but nobody, even a great tzaddik, can tell you, yeah, that's the real other half. So don't have that on your agenda, saying, okay, I'm going to go now to every mekubal in this world and find out if that person is my other half. Now, needless to say that when you come to the whole concept of marriage, it's a huge decision. Sometimes people go on dates, they go on 1 date, 2 dates, 20 dates. It's very confusing, and it's a very big decision. Is that the right person? Is that the person I'm going to live with for the rest of my life? It's not only a big decision, it causes a lot of people to become very confused. Maybe he's not the right person, maybe he's the right person. I like this, but I don't like that. And needless to say, we talked about it last week. We talk about it today also, is most people are very confused. I'm not saying in a negative way and chas v'shalom to hurt anybody, but most people, their spiritual balance is their neshama is completely off balance. And what it's going to cause is that when you look at something, you can't come to a clear decision. That's the problem with most people. Whether it's a place to live, a job to take, a profession to learn, or the person to marry, it doesn't matter. Most people, their soul is affected from different types of impurities that will cause the soul to be not balanced. That's why if you are a little bit aware of the teachings of the Jewish mysticism, specifically Kabbalah, you'll see that the entire basics of Kabbalah is to bring your soul to be balanced. That's why if you look at the structure of the spiritual sefirot, the 10 emanations, you see that there's a right side, there's a left side, and there's a middle side. And the middle side has 2 extra sefirot, Keter and Malchut. Why? Because the whole system has to be balanced. And if you're not balanced, if you're swinging from side to side, you'll never be able to come to a clear decision. Most people find it very difficult to come to decisions. Whether it's what to wear today, whether it's if we're going today to Italian or sushi, or big things like where should I live, what profession should I learn. And needless to say, when it comes to a date, so much more so, I like this, but I don't like that, and I like that, but I don't like this, and maybe this is good, maybe that is not good. This is in itself already a way to look at, is that one needs to bring themselves to a very high level of balance spiritually and emotionally. That will remove 50% of the problem. But I mentioned before about this concept about Mazel. Mazel is, in the translation of Mazel, is luck. But really it's not, no, we're not talking about luck. Mazel will be more equivalent to the spiritual force that is held in the world above, that is holding in it a lot of a huge abundance, and when it drips down into my neshama, I get it in a certain way that whatever my soul can actually handle. To put it in simple words, sometimes people are lucky and they inherit millions of dollars from their parents or their grandparents, but they don't get it in one check. It's placed in a fund, in a trust fund. And you get 20,000 here, 20,000 there. You go to college, you'll get X amount of money. You want to buy a house, you'll get X amount of money. It's held by a trustee. And you don't get the whole thing. Why? Because if you get the whole thing, then you have 3 Ferraris on the front porch, and a year later you have nothing. So I have a friend that they inherited a massive amount of money, him and his sister, from a grandparent. Something that you can easily buy a few Ferraris without even blinking. They didn't get the money. They got portions of it. When they went to study in university, that was paid. They went to buy property, that was paid. Same thing here. The Master of the universe gives you an abundance. He says, if I'm going to give you the abundance in one shot, you're going to blow it up in 1 second. So it comes in, it drips in. That's why the word mazal comes from the word in Hebrew, nazil. Nazil is that it's dripping. If you know, when a person cries, it says in Hebrew, lehazil dima'ah, when a tear drips down. Slowly, slowly. This is the word mazal. And it comes like an IV, drips from above, one drop after the other. Now, there is another thing that we know of that is called fate. Fate or destiny, which makes the whole thing very confusing. Because if there is destiny, then do I have a choice who I'm marrying? Probably not. If I'm running under my destiny or my fate. But if I don't, then it means I choose, and how is it working one to the other? Now we know there's a very famous story. It's not a story, it's the reality, but it can be found in the Talmud, in the tractate called Nida. And it says that when the mother and the father having marital relations, the second that the drop comes out, it doesn't even get cooked yet. Comes an angel. The name of the angel is called Laila, takes this drop and goes to God. And it tells God, this drop, tipazo mati alea, this drop, what's going to be its destiny? Is the person going to be tall, short, brown hair, black hair, blue eyes, rich, poor, strong, weak, smart, rich, whatever, what it's going to be? And the Talmud says there are kol bidei shamayim chutz mirat shamayim. Everything is already predestined and decided by the heavens, besides the level of God-fearing the person will have. It's already decided if you're going to be rich, if you're going to be poor, if you're going to be attractive or not, smart, whatever it is. Everything is already decided. Now that puts things in a very difficult perspective. So if this is the case, it means I already predestined who my wife is, when I'm going to marry. So what am I going to do? Let me just sit all day long and do nothing, and maybe she'll just pop up from the sky. But it's not exactly like that, because if this is the case, that everything is in the hands of the heavens, then I don't have to do anything. But on the other hand, we do know that the Talmud says that I will get my zivug, my shidduch, my other half, based on my actions. So it kind of contradicts it. Do we have here fate? Do we have here mazel? Or it depends on my actions. Now comes another question, because that's in the front line of many people. Can I make a mistake in my decision? That's the question that many people have after they get married, because after they get married and a year and two pass, and they're like, oh my gosh, I think I made a mistake here. I'm not so happy with the merchandise. And then they come back to the matchmaker. I think I made a mistake. Why? I don't know. I don't like her. What do you mean you don't like her? No, she's very messy. She's very loud. Her parents are. I think I made a mistake. What do you mean you made a mistake? You already have 3 kids. So a lot of people, after the fact, they're afraid that they already made a mistake. And some people, what stops them is before the fact to make a mistake. And this is the biggest mistake, because a lot of people say, maybe I'm making the wrong decision, so maybe I'm just going to cancel the whole thing out. So comes the big question, can a person make a mistake? Can you actually marry the wrong person? This is one of the most common questions I get when it comes to shidduchim. Can I make a mistake? If I marry so-and-so, is there a possibility that I will make a mistake and I'll find out after 10 years that I married the wrong person? So going back to the Zohar that we mentioned, and again, if you want to see more in details, we don't have time now to read the entire Zohar, and the entire part in the Zohar, but it can be found in Parashat Lech Lecha, page Tzadik Aleph, 91. And it says there that the soul is built from 2 components, a female and a male. Everything in the world above is built from a female and a male. Now, it says that Adam HaRishon, the first man, was born, he was like how do you call it in English? A Siamese twin. He was attached. 2 faces. Front was Adam, the back was Chava. He was one body, one half of it was a female, half of it was a male. And if you remember the story in the book of Bereshit, Adam HaRishon was sitting on a beautiful chair, a little bit nicer than the chair I got tonight, but he was sitting on a beautiful chair, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu brought to him everything in creation, and Adam HaRishon started naming it. He brought in front of him a lion. He says, this is going to be called Aryeh. He brought in front of him a sheep. This is going to be called Kivsa. Why? He saw the godly power that enlivens the animal and everything else, whether it was food or whatever it is, and he named it. But he noticed that every animal had a mate, because in English it's not always like that, but in Hebrew most of the animals there's a name for the female and a name for the male. In English it's not 100% like that, but in Hebrew a lion, the male is Aryeh and the female is Leviah, and a cow, then a male is Par or Shor and the female is Para. And almost in all the animals in Hebrew they have different names. So he says, hey, that's not fair. How come I'm not getting one? How come everybody in creation they got the other half and I'm not? So Hashem says, what, you want one? He's like, yeah, I want one. And up until today, we're paying for that mistake. But nevertheless, the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Lo tov al Adam liot levado. It's not good for the person to be by himself. Ezvra lo ezer kenegdo. I will create for him a helpmate. But here is where the words in Hebrew are a little bit more sophisticated, because it says ezer. Ezer is a helpmate. Kenegdo can be translated as in front of him, but also can be translated as kenegdo, against him. Rashi says, a commentary in the Torah, im zacha, if he has the merit, then she becomes an ezer, she becomes a helpmate. If lo zacha, if he doesn't have the merit, she becomes negdo, she goes against him. But nevertheless, we already see that in the beginning, Adam HaRishon was created one person, then he was separated for 2. Of course, you know the famous story that the rib was taken out. This is, I think, maybe Hallmark invented that Zohar says it wasn't the rib, it was the side of Adam HaRishon that was taken out. Tzela means a side, not necessarily a rib. But nevertheless, this is the key to any type of marriage, whether it's before you are married, when you are looking to get married, and after you get married. This is the key, is this whole ezer kenegdo. Because the Torah says, Zacharu nekava bera'am. Kadosh Baruch Hu created them a female and a male. And the ezer kenegdo, it means that I will have completely different character traits from my wife. If I'm looking something that to be a perfect fit, it's usually the complete opposite of me. That's why in most marriages, then that's why people feel that they made a mistake, because in the beginning they get married, everything is lovey-dovey, and there are a lot of love and a lot of hearts going on in WhatsApp, and all these flying sparklies and hearts and arrows in the heart, all this junk. But nevertheless, this only works in theory. In the beginning is a lot of hearts. Can you imagine how many hearts are in the database of WhatsApp? So, but nevertheless, after things settle down, suddenly, wait a minute, it seems like that person is not such a great fit. The more the person is the opposite fit, that's where you see actually the connection. Because we all came here to refine ourselves, and in order for me to refine myself, I need a very good kenegdo, ezer kenegdo, a helpmate that is going to stand in front of me. If I'm going now on a date, I guarantee that 99.999, if not 100% of people in the world, when they go on a date, they're at least 20 minutes, if not 2 hours in front of the mirror. I don't know anybody that just says, oh, a date, no problem, and goes out. Usually it's like, is this hair straight? Is this hair straight? And maybe changing 3 different shirts. No, this shirt doesn't, so. And again, chas v'shalom, I'm not making fun of anybody, but I was there too, so I know what it means. Before you go on a date, every line, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this? A disaster, I have a date tonight. So, the funniest thing is that how you get ready for the date, it's usually not what the other person in front of you is looking for. You're going to look for the shirt to be ironed, or the hair to be like this, or this to match that, and the other person sitting in front of you doesn't even notice what you were particular about. That's the joke. If you're looking from above, both sides, you laugh. Because you still work on your hair, and the person doesn't even look at your hair, looks at the clothes, or whatever it is. But nevertheless, why you look in the mirror so long? Because you want to make yourself look presentable and nice and attractive, and you want to present yourself in your finest. So you need a mirror throughout your entire life. And how do I make myself better? Is I need a mirror. Can't have a good image of myself if I don't have a mirror. Not too long ago, Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of classes. We have a yeshiva and a ladies center and a lot of tours. So Baruch Hashem, we load all the videos on the internet. Sure, you saw some of them. A few months ago, we loaded a video, and the guy who's running the YouTube and the videos, and anyways, he calls me to see something, and I'm looking at a video, and oh my gosh, look at that. One of my hairs were sticking out like that. And I'm looking at that, and the video was already online for like maybe 2-3 days, got like 5,000-6,000 views, and I'm looking at the video, and I look like Gargamel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did nobody tell me? I have antennas on the side, and usually I make sure they're tucked in very nice, and I'll wet my hair before I start a lecture. I don't know, maybe it was some static in the room, and I had like an antenna sticking out, and I literally looked like Gargamel. The guy from the Smurfs that has the antennas? Needless to say that my kids were around me, and they were laughing. Look how you look! And in my mind, oh my gosh, look how I look. This is embarrassing. I bet look like look how I look. And then the guy, the YouTube manager says, should we remove the video? I said, what do you mean remove the video? It already got thousands of views. So I said, it made a couple people laugh. It made 2,000-3,000 people laugh. Good. That's enough. So I look funny. Big deal. But the fact was that the next day I came back to class and I told the ladies, why didn't you tell me? I have a ladies seminary. I told them, why didn't you tell me I look like that? Just go to me like this, or make some, give me some hint or something. Just go like, so why are you sitting there? Now I understand why you're all giggling the whole 3 hours. So, and my request was like, if I look a little bit funny, if I have here, sometimes I love my beard, but sometimes you have here a piece of dinner, and here you have something from breakfast, and it's not intentionally, but it's very difficult to eat with a beard, especially when you like the juicy falafels and the shawarma, and it's all like, you have to take a shower right away. So a lot of people invite me to eat. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm going to eat at home. Why? I'm going to take you for a very good restaurant. It's fine. You do not want to see me eating. So a lot of the times when I travel and many of my students, followers, they have restaurants. Come, I want to treat you to a meal. No, I had already something at home. No, I'm going to treat you. You can eat whatever you want. And I'm like, no, this is not a nice sight. So just imagine. But nevertheless, so my request is always, if you see something not balanced here, something not sitting well, then tell me. Wouldn't you want somebody to come and tell you, excuse me, the hair is out of the way, or you look funny, or you have a crumb here? So my wife is my mirror to shape me, to make me understand that what I need to work on. Now, if I have a problem with anger, then my wife is going to be the one who's going to get me out of my balance all day long. She's going to make me angry all day long. Not because she's mean, and not because she's not my other half, because she is the one to make me work on my deficiency, which will be anger. If I have a problem with patience, then my wife will be causing me constantly to lose my patience. Whatever it is, I'm just giving 2 or 3 examples out of many. I came down to this world to be refined. Now my other half is my mirror. So if I'm already into marriage, then I have to understand that, thank your mirror. You want yourself to look good, then polish the mirror. So, and if it's before that I'm getting married, I have to understand that the one who's sitting in front of me in the date, that is going to be the mirror. Is that the appropriate person to be my mirror? Or is that a person that is not appropriate to be my mirror? Nevertheless, then the Torah comes and gives me the basics, the key to any type of relationship is that my other half is my ezer kenegdo, is my helpmate that will be across to me or against me. It seems to me that it's against me, but it's not. There's a beautiful interpretation of, I'm sure you're all familiar with the famous Star of David. Most people, they go proudly, they wear their Star of David. Most people don't even know where it originates from. But nevertheless, that in itself can be a beautiful lecture. Where is the Star of David coming from? The people wear it proudly on their chests. And many other places, half of the synagogues, they have the Star of David. It's way before David, by the way. But nevertheless, there's a beautiful interpretation of the Star of David is that the female and the male, they are these triangles. And the female represents the triangle, it's called the straight triangle, the triangle that goes up. And the male represents the upside down triangle. And each one, they're identical. If you turn them around, it's 2 identical triangles. But they're completely different. They're completely different. And when you try to put them together, you see that they're completely upside down, completely opposite. But if you put them together in harmony, together they fit and they become perfection. So the husband and the wife is always going to be opposites. They're always going to be different. They're always going to be from completely different places. In the beginning, when there's a little bit of love in the air, then you don't so much see the faults. You fall in love, you get excited, but after suddenly the cloud moves, and oh my gosh, what did I do? So the point is that I have to understand that my other half is, if I work it well, then it becomes perfection. It does become perfection. Now, as the Zohar said, that before the person is born, then the soul is about to take the plunge down to the world. Then this angel will cut the soul in half. The female part of the soul will go to the female. The male part of the soul will go to the male. And one will fall in London, another one will fall in New York, one for this family, that family, and then they start growing and moving and learning, and they're looking for each other here and there and there. Now you have to find how am I bringing this connection together. Now, if you're looking at it from the spiritual point of view, then you need to know how to refine yourself, how to elevate yourself to the point where you are not applicable, but rather you are ready for the other half to be brought to you. So this is one very large portion of the problem of most people, is that spiritually they're not holding on the level they're supposed to hold. And the result will be that it's very hard for them to find the other half. Now, going back to the question that we asked before, is it free choice? Do I have control over finding my other half or not? Maybe it's fate. Because in one way we're saying that it depends on my actions. And if I'm spiritually elevated and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, then it will be easier to find the other half. But that doesn't work so well, because there's a place in the Talmud, specifically in Tractate Sotah, in the beginning of the tractate, a certain Tana, his name is Resh Lakish, and he says that a person receives his other half based on his actions, his or her. That's what the Talmud says. Comes a different Tana, Rabbi Yehuda, and says, that's not true, because we know that 40 days before the person is born, it's already announced in Shamayim, Bat Ploni leben Ploni. Her is going to get married with him. It's already announced. So how is that corresponding? How is that working? That in one way it depends on my actions, and another way it's already decided, it's predestined. So one of the answers that we have is that people are looking for the other half in the wrong level. And I have to understand that a lot of it is depending on my spiritual level. And a lot of the problems is that I'm not looking to the person in the right level. And sometimes I'm in a certain level spiritually. I'm only talking about spiritually. I'm not talking about right now your academic background or your financial state. And this is not what I'm talking about. I'm only talking about the spiritual level where I'm holding. And could be that I am holding in a certain level and my wife is not. And I'll give you an example from my own life. When I became observant and I was looking for my wife, then after I found her, I was already pretty much observant. I was already in yeshiva. I had a beard when I met my wife. One of our first dates, I dropped her off. We didn't even go to eat. We were just sitting and talking. After that, I told her, I'm very hungry. Is there anywhere around here to eat? She told me, go to that restaurant. I walk into the restaurant. It wasn't even a kosher restaurant. And I'm like, what? What am I doing here? Later on, I told her, why you send me to that restaurant? Oh, no, it's a good restaurant, no? I told her, but it's not even kosher. Oh. I was like, what's going on? What do you mean, oh? Later on, I mean, it was pretty obvious to us that we're a match. Later on, when we were already more dating, I believe it was even after we got engaged, at some point, I came to my rabbi and I told him, I don't know if this relationship is going to work. And he tells me why. And I told him, because I'm in a much higher spiritual level than her. Now, I thought I'm going to get a good feedback from my rabbi. Wow, it's very important that you're in the same level and this and that. Instead of getting good feedback from my rabbi, he almost beat me up. He told me, how dare you say that you're in a much higher level than her? Who do you think you are to say that I'm in a much more spiritual level than her? I'm much more observant than her. And he gave me a piece of his mind. So, and which I was like, okay. I'm stepping back. But in my mind, I felt that I'm in a much higher spiritual level than her. Because I was already in yeshiva, I was fully observing Shabbat, my strictness in kosher was in a very high level, and she was still much, much lower. So in the beginning, I was like, okay, it's cute. But then I was like, no, this is going to be a problem, because I'm much more advanced than her. Instead of seeing that, maybe I'm here to elevate her, and at some point, maybe she had a later start, at some point she'll either catch up or maybe even pass me. But with that said, a lot of the times I'm holding myself in a certain spiritual level, and that's what I look for. And there's a very good chance that your other half is much more observant than you. And that's why you can't find the other half, because your standards are here and that person is here. And that poor person is sitting and waiting for you to get your act together, and they don't understand, where is my other half? If somebody could just tell them, well, right now they're not really observing Shabbat like you, and right now they're not in the level of kashrut, of supervision in kosher diet like you, and so forth. So you have to also understand that a lot of the times you are the one who's causing the other half not to be found, because that person is already in the right level and you're the one who's dragging behind, and it's you that needs to step it up, so to say. There's a story, like a parable, to kind of understand that, because when a lot of people are looking for the other half, they're looking in the wrong level. So the story goes that one time a person meets his friend, and he sees his friend wearing a beautiful shirt. He says, wow, where'd you get that beautiful shirt? Oh, I got it in that mall down the street. Really? Oh, I love that shirt. And he says, I want to get myself one like that. He goes to the mall and he walks on the first floor, and all he sees are stores for shoes, for toys, for stationery, food. He can't find one store of clothes. He's like, what did my friend send me here? There's not even one store that sells shirts here. He goes back to his friend and tells him, I don't understand. You sent me to that mall. I didn't even find one store there. So he tells him, which floor were you looking at? He's like, well, I was looking on the ground floor. He's like, well, it's on the second floor. So he went back to the mall, and needless to say, went to the second floor, and the entire second floor was just clothing stores. So he was looking for the store in the wrong floor, so he couldn't find it. And all he needed to do is go one step higher, one floor up, and finally, oh, that's where I find the match. So many times, we see that when you're looking for the other half, the person is looking in the wrong department, in the wrong level. And that's where it comes to interpret that it depends on my actions. Yes, it's already predestined who I'm going to get married, but I can mess it up. I can schlep it a year and another year and another year and another year, and at some point, Hashem says, okay, I see you're not stepping it up. It's time for me to match you with somebody else and that person with somebody else. And you don't want to miss your other half. I know it sounds very devastating, and what, am I going to find my other half? It doesn't matter. The Kadosh Baruch Hu can find to you whoever you want, whoever He wants. But nevertheless, the point we want to take from that spiritually, that I see with my own eyes in the last 15 years when I deal with a lot of people, they're looking for the other half. They're not in the level where they're supposed to be spiritually. They need to step it up. They need to grow spiritually, and that's when they find their other half. Because their actions, like I said before, there are two opinions. One opinion says it's already predestined. Good, if it's predestined, I'll just sit and do nothing. No, but the other opinion says no, but it also depends on your actions. And your actions is where you're holding spiritually. And if you raise yourself to a spiritual level, to a higher level, then that's when you're opening a whole new opportunity to find your other half. Now, in general, when people go on dates, there are different things that a lot of people ask me, what should I look in when I go to in a date to another person? What should I look in another person? Now, there's usually a few rules of thumbs that one should remember when they go on a date, because usually people go with very high expectations. Not too long ago, same thing, I sat with one of our students. He's not a young man, he's in his late 40s, and he, needless to say, not in a good place. He's waiting to get married, he can't find his other half. And he started learning. We have a yeshiva for older men and a women's seminary for older women. Not old like 90, but older. Because usually you go to yeshiva, the kids there are not 20 years old. Even though we have in our yeshiva an 84-year-old man learning. Just imagine. And I'm like a kid there. Everybody's in their 50s and 60s. But nevertheless, same with the ladies. But nevertheless, he was asking, maybe you can find one of the ladies in the women's seminary. And I said, okay, any special requests? She must be 5.6 feet. I said, excuse me? And if she's 5.5, no. If she's 5.5, you don't want her. Nope. Told me 49 years old. You don't want a 5.5 girl? No. Sorry to tell you, I can't help you. I can't help you. Why? That's not nice. You're supposed to help me. I said, I'm not supposed to do anything. You have to help yourself. If you're giving me such a condition, if she's smaller, shorter, I don't know what's a nice way to saying it, she's not 5.6, what do you go here in London? By meters or by feet? Feet? I said, I don't understand. And if she's 5.4, and if she's 2 pounds over the weight, they're not accepting her? And he, in a very persistent way, says, no, she has to be tall. I'm tall. I says, I'm also very tall, and my wife is very not tall. I think when I went to the Shadchanit, I told her how what I'm expecting. When I went on dates and somebody asked me, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for my other half. No, but what are you looking for? I said it the first time, I'm looking for my other half. You want her tall, short, fat, skinny, intelligent? I don't care what she is. Whatever she comes, that's how I'm going to take her. You think I'm going to design her? And if she's not in the same academic level that I'm expecting, I'm not going to marry her. And if she's not exactly how I want, blue eyes and blonde hair and small eyebrows, and the way she's going to come, that's how I'm going to accept her. And when I was going on dates, and the first person that matched me up, he says, would you go out with a woman, she's not so young, she's divorced and she has a child. Do you want to go out? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course, why not? And he's like, you don't mind? I said, no, I don't mind. Why would I mind? If she's my other half. So what if she's divorced? So what if there's a child? Yes, I don't want a child. I don't want to raise somebody else's child. But if she's my other half, do I have an option here? Am I going to push her away because she's not on the exact description of what I want? And I went on the date, and in my mind I was like, listen, if that's my other half has to come in a package that she's divorced with a child, and with the record that she came, I said, well, I'm not so perfect myself. So she can also look at me and says, I don't know, he's not so attractive. So my attitude was like, I'm going to take whatever Hashem thinks is right for me. Whether it's exactly how I like it or not, that's my problem, and that's where I lose, because most people, instead of saying, you know what, Hashem, just give me what's good for me, that comes with too much demands. If she's not like this, if he's not like that, and so this man, I told him, I'm sorry to tell you, I'm not going to be the one who helps you, because I cannot match you or help you match you. If you're coming and tell me if she's lower than 5.6, I don't want her. And and then of course he had more demands. He's 49. She has to be not older than 28. I said, why would a 26-year-old girl look at a 49-year-old man, and she wants a 28-year-old man, a 32? Why would she look at you? No offense. You're a brilliant guy, you're smart, you're fine. Why would she look at you? Why would I go to a 26-year-old girl and tell her, I have a man for you, he has a cane, and no, she must have kids. I said, but and I couldn't get down to what he's talking about. And again, it's not about hurting anybody or laughing at somebody. I just could not understand. I told him, I don't understand. Why didn't you just tell me, just find me a good lady. Just find me somebody with a good heart. Whether she's older, younger, 5.6, 5.1, who cares? What, are you going to go in the date and start measuring her? I'm sorry to tell you, you're missing 3/4 of an inch. You got to go home. So it's very important. I know it's very funny, and I know it's not, because it's true. It's true, and it's sad, because a lot of people, they have this image, and if it's not 100%, then you're not willing to give in. I lived in New York. I was in touch with a very special rabbi. Fortunately, he passed away a few years ago. He was known to be the matchmaker. Everybody went to him. And he had such a cool attitude. Before the date, he was so nice. He would go and prepare the man and the woman separately, of course. And he had this funny attitude that he would take the man and then take the woman, and he would stand in front of them, with them in front of a mirror. And he would tell them, you're very intelligent, you're very attractive. And tell them all sorts of good things. And then before he would send them off, he would pat them on the back and say, well, you're not that great. Now you can go to the date. Don't think you're that great. So just understand that you're also not a big metzia. So, but nevertheless, when I'm already approaching to the date, needless to say that I have to have some type of some types of a definition what I'm looking for. I'm not going to just go out blindly. But it's extremely important that that's how I see it, that first of all, look at the character traits of the person, not on the external part. The external part is also very important. Has to be attraction, has to be that you like the person how they look. Doesn't have to be Miss Universe or Mr. Universe. Has to be attraction, there's no question here. No attraction, don't even continue. Because if there's not going to be attraction, physical attraction, it will never work. But the first and most important is you look at the internal part, the midot, the characteristic of the person. The person is kind and loving and charitable and gentle and whatever it is that you see, that's what's going to be a good fit for you. Don't look so much as the external part. Needless to say that you want to make sure that the person has a level of yirat shamayim, of God-fearing. And even if you're not in such a high level, you still want the person to have it even a higher level than you. If the person doesn't have yirat shamayim God-fearing, there's not much what to work with, because I see so many people that they get married and the difference in their service to Hashem, they don't match. And then when you start growing and growing and growing, that person doesn't grow with you. Now, needless to say, it has to be that the conversation is very pleasant, that you accommodate each other, that there has to be some compatibility. You can't just go blindly and say, okay, whatever Hashem sends me, that's it, I'll take the first one. Has to be compatibility. And of course, the external part is very, very important too. Has to be attraction, and you have to like how the person looks. Doesn't have to be that you have to like every shirt that the person is wearing. This is, some people say that, everything is good, but I'm not so happy with the wardrobe. Okay, so buy a new wardrobe. What's the big deal? That's what's going to stop you from getting married, because you don't like the taste of shirts. But nevertheless, I always like looking at the spiritual aspect of it. The physical aspect of it is that I have to understand that if I have a wife or a husband predestined, I have to accept her or him how they come. And I cannot come and put a whole list of demands and says, if it doesn't fit all this list, I don't want to even go on the date. Has to be a lot of giving in and a lot of flexibility here. You have to understand what is the one that the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants for you, not what you necessarily want. Because usually what you want is based on opinions, based on how you grew up, based on what your subconscious is feeding you from what it was fed for many years, and and usually it's wrong, because like I said before, we grow in society, so society tells you, in different societies it says if the person doesn't have an academic degree, you can't marry him. And sometimes people, that's what they're stuck on. And in a different society, if it's in a more observant society, no, if you didn't finish yeshiva 12 years, and that's where you see sometimes that society, it tells you what you need, and it's totally wrong. And I had a student like that, a lady, and she, for many years, she couldn't get married, and one of her standards, he has to be academic. And I kept telling her, but what if your husband is a plumber? But he's an amazing man, and a good-hearted man, and a hard worker, and he's going to be an amazing father, and he's going to be an amazing husband. So he's not a doctor. No, he has to be academic. And I told her for years, you're never going to find your other half, because I think your other half is an electrician, or a mechanic, or there's nothing wrong with being a plumber. And there was one person, he was a tow truck driver. And I know it sounds funny, it's not. He was the sweetest man in the world. So loving, so caring, so thoughtful. And I always looked at it and I said, that's her other half. And he would come to my classes with dirty hands and a little bit rough. He looked a little bit rough, but inside, such a teddy bear. On the outside, he looked like a tow truck driver, rough, strong guy. And a couple times when I told her, I think that's your husband. Oh no, don't even think about that. And sure enough, it took many, many years, and she still doesn't get it. And they're both not married, and they're both in their late 40s. I think he's already in his 50s. And every time I see her, I tell her, that's your other half. No, don't even think about it. I said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, you might die by yourself because you're not willing to settle for a tow truck driver. But you know how he makes a lot of money, by the way. And tow trucks make a lot of money. I don't care. So this is where you see sometimes people are so sealed, their mind is so set on something. And where is it coming from? From society. It was already fed to her mind from an early stage that she has to marry somebody with an academic background. And that's where you see the mistake, and this is one example out of many. A lot of people, they're locked on something and they can't get married. And sometimes you have to let go of what you're locked on. I recently heard such an amazing story. It's not exactly fits this example, but it comes to tell you how sometimes you let go of something that you're locked on. There was a young man, it's a true story by the way, a young man, and he couldn't get married. Brilliant young man, he was studying in yeshiva for many, many years. All his friends get married and he can't get married. And the reason why he couldn't get married, he had a very big scar here on his face, but in a very not attractive way. And he couldn't get married. long story short, he felt that every woman that comes to the date, she's kind of brushing him off because there's a big scar on his face. And he tried to hide it, and whatever, he tried constantly to hide the scar. One time, he went to one of the greatest rabbis in our generation, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and he asked for a blessing. And he says, I can't get married. So he says, why do you think you can't get married? I see a very fine young man. He says, I think it's because of my scar. So the rabbi told him, next time you go on a date, you tell the girl why you have the scar. He says, okay. So he goes on a date, and he doesn't go on the date yet. 2 months later, the matchmaker says, I have a girl for you. So, as normal people ask, how does she look? And the matchmaker says she's gorgeous. And he's like, well, gorgeous is not good because I don't look so good, and she's probably going to right away throw me too. And anyways, long story short, he really didn't want to go on the date, but there was some pressure, and he went on the date. And sure enough, he comes and he sees this beautiful, attractive woman, and he sits like this the whole date. He doesn't know what to do. He's trying to hide the scar. At some point, he remembers that the rabbi told him, tell the date why you have the scar. So of course, very hard for him, he removes the hand at some point, and he noticed that she's like looking at it, and he tells her, listen, I know it's very not out of place, but I want to tell you why I have this scar. And he tells her, many years ago, I was studying in Jerusalem, and one night I'm going home, and I hear screaming. And I see Arab attacking a young girl, and he's attacking her. And I jumped on him, and I was fighting with him. The girl ran away, and he took out a knife, and he sliced my face. And he's noticing that the girl's with her face down, and then she lifts up her head, and he sees that her eyes are tearing. And he's like, doesn't know what to do. And the girl tells him, I've been looking for years for the man who saved me. And she was the girl that he saved. And for years, she was looking for him. He couldn't pick up his head in dates. He was, covering the scar. And sure enough, it's the scar that what she was looking for, the person who saved her. So we see sometimes we're so locked. And this is a true story, brother. I'm not inventing it. Sometimes we're locked on something and we can't let go. Whether the example that I gave you before, that the woman was like, he has to be academic or whatever it is, and sometimes that's where the problem is, that you can let go of something and say, okay, my other half is not going to come in the shape and the form how I was dreaming about, how I was building it up, how it was in my mind for so many years. And you come to one date and another date, and no, that's not the one, not the one. You have to be very open and not so quick to judge, and to really get to let go of sometimes these little things that are stopping you from being a little bit more open-minded and saying, maybe that person is the one that fits me, and it's not going to come how I want to. It's not going to come necessarily how I was hoping or how I was dreaming. But you have to look one step above. You have to look, if that person is somebody I can live with for the rest of my life. I like always looking at the internal things and the internal part of things. And I always like looking, and that's what I was looking in my wife. I didn't care how she looks. I didn't care if she's tall or short, if she's wide or broad or narrow. I didn't care where she came from, if she's Ashkenazi, she's not, she's far. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to see the person in front of me and to say, is that the person that's going to make me a better person? Is that the person who's going to be my Ezer Kenegdo? And sure enough, when I found her, she was more perfect than what I was expecting, because I had zero expectations. And she came more attractive than I wanted. Everything was perfect. And you know what? Everybody has faults. Everybody keeps coming with baggage. There's no such a thing that you're coming into a marriage and everything is perfect. There's always going to be baggage. There's always going to be problems. If one part is good, the other part will be horrible. I know so many people, they're breaking off dates because the family is like this, and the mother is like that, and the uncle is this, and so what? Everything is good. Any type of relationship is always going to come with a lot of good and also a lot of bad. There's no perfect. There's no perfection here. And you have to really approach that, let me see what Hashem wants for me. It's not what I want for me. It all boils down. to my ego. Because I approach what's good for me. I want it to look a certain way. I want it to be a certain way. We have very good friends that when they got married, she was looking for a Prince Charm. Attractive, money, job, the whole thing. And she found a young, attractive man who had a very, very, very good parnasa, making a very large amount of money every year, nice cars, everything, exactly what she was dreaming. But you know that about 6 years into the marriage, he lost his business and everything went down. The money, the fame, the status. Now with the disaster, he couldn't stand the failure, so he became very sick mentally, and like everything caved down. Baruch Hashem, she was a smart woman, and they're still together. They're going through a lot of challenges. But one time she was sitting on our couch crying, and she was like, when I got married, he was perfect. And now I have to take care of him. There's no money, we lost everything, he's emotionally and mentally sick and depressed and whatever it is. I don't have to go into too many details. And she was like, look how life just turned around upside down. I thought he's going to take care of me for the rest of my life, and I wanted money and being comfortable. Now I have to take care of him, and I have to be the provider, and I have to take care of a sick individual. And I said, you see, I'm happy that you're realizing that life turns around like that. And one time a person is here, and the next time is here. And when I got married to my wife, I came with the worst baggage. And I came with nothing, literally nothing. Her parents couldn't even want to see me because I came with nothing. And not only with nothing, I came with the worst of the worst. And everybody told her, why are you marrying this guy? Look at what's going on. Look at the background. I'm sure some of you know, and I shared a lot of parts of my story. And she says, no, I'm not looking right now at the present. I see a few steps into the future. I see the potential. And I see that, maybe now it doesn't look so good. But I see the material. I see what is the potential there. And I know what will be developed from that. And our sages say, Ezu hachacham haroet hanolad. Who's a smart person? That sees what will be born out of a situation. And most people, they see one step in front of them. They don't look many steps after. So when you approach to looking for the right person, if you're looking at it in a very close view, then you're expecting one thing. Usually it's not going to be that. You have to already start developing how is that person going to be in 20 years. Because a lot of men especially, they want the woman to be extremely attractive. Yeah, but she's not going to be so attractive after 3 kids. And not that I'm saying in a negative way. That's what happens. Women grow more mature. I mean, I know it sounds like a cliche. Women become better with time. But a lot of men say, listen, I have a problem. She's going to gain weight. She's not going to look so attractive. And so what do you think you're marrying? A model? So a lot of people, they're looking at what's now. And they don't understand that life can change in 1 second. Life changes. I've seen disasters in families that everything went well for 10 years and then one of the spouses have a car accident and becomes disabled and so many things. So you have to look more what Hashem fits for you, not what you think is the perfect match. Of course, has to be some type of compatibility. You have to be attracted to the person, has to fit very well. I mean, but it has to be in a very, very flexible way. It says, what does Hashem really think is the best thing for me? To come to the date or to the whole process with a very open mind and say, okay, let me try to figure out what the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. Now, when you take these two aspects, the physical and the spiritual, you have to question yourself, am I in the spiritual level that I'm supposed to be? Maybe not. Maybe I really have to step it up. Maybe I'm here and my other half is so high up, he's not looking for me, he's not going to find me right now because I'm 3 steps behind. So this is always the highest recommendation is there. You always just have to step it up. You know, a lot of people, what they do, and I'm not against it. A lot of people, what they do is they will pray a certain prayer for 40 days. You find it in many cases when it comes to marriages. We have something that maybe you'll want to get a part of it very soon. You know that in about 2.5 weeks is the Jewish Valentine's, Tu B'Av. And our sages say that there weren't better days for the nation of the Jews like Yom Kippurim and Tu B'Av. It's a very, very powerful day. I live 20 minutes from the I don't want to say the word Mecca, but the highest point where all the single people go to pray. It's a grave called Amuka. And people come from all over the world. They go to the grave to pray there. And needless to say, what miracles people saw there. And so in 2.5 weeks is the 15th day of Av. Again, I don't like calling it in not the Jewish names, but it's like the Valentine Day of the Jewish faith. Do you have even Valentine's Days here in England? Or is it just in America? Yeah, it's in England too? So, but nevertheless, we invented the Valentine's Day. It's Tu B'Av. This is the day, it's in Hebrew it's called Chag Ha'ava, the holiday of love. So I know for many people, we take a lot of groups there. We have a big event going on in 2.5 weeks. And we take groups there. And I know that many people, they'll take on themselves a certain prayer to say for 40 days. Whether it's to read Perek Shira, whether it's to read Shirat Hayam, whether it's to read Pitum Aktoret. This is something very common. And I'm not against all these things. A lot of people, what they do is there's too much of all these remedies. People are just sometimes just looking for remedies. Give me this, give me this, give me that. Hanging garlic on my head and doing threes and all this sorts of nonsense. I'm not into the remedies, but I do support that when a person takes on themselves a change and saying, yeah, I'm going to add a certain prayer, because the third component that is one of the most important ones is the right prayer. Most people don't pray for what they need. They pray that he should have a lot of money. They pray that she should be gorgeous. That's not what you need to pray for. You need to pray for Hashem to find you the right person with all the differences and all the challenges that's going to be coming with it. But nevertheless, there is a lot of mystical things specifically in the prayers. I do strongly support that people do pray for that they take on themselves the time to pray for their other half, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu listens to your prayers. Now, amazingly, and a lot of people ask me, why do people do specifically the 40 days, whether it's reading a certain prayer or Perek Shira, and a lot of people, what they do is they read Perek Shira, the song of creation. And many other things. A lot of people read Pitum Aktoret, the burning of the incense. There's different things that people do. But why specifically the 40 days? So we know that 40 days is a mystical number in Judaism. Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountains for 40 days to get the Torah. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to purify the world, the flood was 40 days. We just mentioned that 40 days before the person is born is already announced who's going to marry who. So why 40 days? Because the letters in Hebrew, they have numerical value. And the letter that its numerical value is 40 is the letter Mem. And Mem is the letter in Hebrew is called Ot Ma'avar. What is Ot Ma'avar? Ot is a letter. Ma'avar is that it moves from one place to another. Now in Hebrew, the letters have different meaning. The letter Lamed is where it's heading to. Why? Because you're saying, where are you going now? I'm going Le Tel Aviv. I'm going to Tel Aviv. Where are you going? I'm going Le Bet Knesset. I'm going to Bet Knesset. So Lamed is the letter that takes you somewhere. But Mem is the letter that causes what's called Ma'avar, taking you from one place to another place. So somebody will ask you in Hebrew, where are you coming from? I'm coming, Aniba, Mi Eretz Israel, Mi Yerushalayim, Mi Avodah. It's a letter that takes you from one place to another place. This is why in Hebrew it's called Ot Ma'avar, a letter that takes you from one place to another. So, and usually from one place to a higher place. So you use this letter to go from a lower place to a higher place. And this is this Mem, this 40. That's why specifically there's a Sgula remedy. I don't like using so much these words, but a Sgula, a power in the number 40. Amazingly, you see that when does a mother become a mother? For the first 40 days, there's no fetus there. I mean, there's something there. But only after 40 days, they can know the gender, whether it's a man, a boy, or a girl. And even lehalacha, if the chas v'shalom, the woman has a miscarriage, the first 40 days, there's nothing there. After 40 days, lehalacha, to the oral law, is if there's a boy, if it was a male, then there's it affects the pidyon haben, the firstborn. But nevertheless, you see how the words in Hebrew have so accurate words that the word mother in Hebrew is em. Em is written aleph and a mem, because mem is 40, the first 40 days, she's not a mother. 1 day passes after the 40 days, the aleph, that's it, she becomes a mother. Now when does the father become a father? How do you say father in Hebrew? Av. Av is the letter aleph and the letter bet. When does the father becomes Av? Is that 1 becomes 2. The father becomes a father when the baby's out in the world. So based on the Torah, the woman becomes a mother in the 41st day. The father becomes a father once the baby is out, because 1 became 2. When aleph becomes bet. And interestingly, our sages say that there are 3 partners for the child: God, the father, and the mother. Now if you're taking the numerical value of Av, which is 3, aleph and bet is 3, and M is 41, you get 44. 44 is the numerical value of the word in Hebrew dam. Dam is blood. But if you're looking at what our sages say, shlosha shutafim ba'adam, 3 partners are in the creation of Adam, Hashem, and then the mother and the father. If you're looking at the word Adam, so the aleph is, who's the aleph? Alufo shel olam, Hashem echad. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad. Aleph, it goes on Hashem. What is left in the word Adam? Remove the aleph, the dam, the dalet and the mem, the mother and the father. So that's where we get this number 40. So I do highly recommend that people take on themselves, okay, I'm going to do something now for 40 days. And what is this something? I'm going to add now a certain prayer for 40 days. Now it doesn't mean that a lot of people say, okay, I'm going to start observing Shabbat for 40 days. Well, that's only like 7 Shabbatot there. It's not even. It's like 6 Shabbatot. How are you going to, then you're going to stop observing Shabbat? It's not what I'm referring to. In the spiritual level, what I was talking, yes, you want to grow spiritually. Because there's a very, very good chance that your other half is a few steps above you, and you're walking around the shopping mall in the first level, and he's on the second level, he or she. So, in the spiritual side of it, when we're explaining that it depends also on my actions, then my actions is my spiritual work. And the way to look at it is, yeah, you have to bump it up. You have to grow spiritually, to grow to a much higher level. And the spiritual part, like when we were talking about the destiny, then it means that I have to be very humble and I have to say, okay, what does Hashem have in mind for me? And not what I have in mind for me. What is Hashem planning for me? This is where I have to be humble. That's where I have to approach the shidduch, the date, in an open mind and saying, you know what, most likely she or he will not come in the package how I was expecting for the last 40 years. So I know how it is. My daughters, they're very young. They're from my daughter, when she was 3 years old already, she would get dressed as a bride. And then she would take one of the brothers, she would put him here, you are the groom. And then she would take another brother, put him here, you are the rabbi, you are officiating the wedding. And she would be wearing her white dress and she would run the whole show. And so from the age of 3, you're already planning how your wedding will be. My kids are already planning their weddings. I mean, I don't even know where I'm going to come up with the money. I mean, the wedding is in 30 years. In 20 years, my daughter already, she's 5 years old. I want purple flowers. And I want the dress. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going to get the money for this dress? So I always tell her, you better find a rich man, because I don't even know where I'm going to get the money for that type of a wedding. So we have expectations from a very low age. Go into these list of expectations and negate half of them. And throw half of them out of the window, because it's not healthy to expect that. And you know, the more you surrender, the more you humble yourself and you give over to the control to God, then you see that He tells you, oh, finally, you're letting me run the show? Now I'm going to send you the person that is the most perfect for you. In your opinion, it might not be the most perfect. But trust me, God knows 10 times better what is good for you to share the rest of your life with. So this comes on the more on the physical level, that you have to humble yourself, have to surrender more to the will of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And the third part of the triangle is, what are you doing in regards to prayers? Because praying is one of the most important things. A lot of times people ask me advice, I tell them pray. What do you mean pray? I pray 3 times a day. Well, this is not the prayer I'm talking about. You have to pray to Hashem, you have to open your heart, and you have to talk to God like your best friend. What is on your heart? What is bothering you? What are your feelings? And you pray to Hashem. And needless to say, it's highly recommended that I know a lot of people that they did that they saw miracles. That they would take 40 days to say a certain prayer. There's different prayers that take on themselves. I know many people, what they do is they read the Song of Creation. It's called Perek Shirah. It shouldn't take long. It's better, of course, to read it in Hebrew. Some people will do Tikkun HaKlali. Some people will do Pitom HaKtoret. Some people will do all of them together. So this is also, it has to be done in the right way. It can't go out of control. Some people all day long, they read 3 hours a day, they read things. It has to be a very healthy balance. So the point you want to take from that is that, look at it in 3 different ways, how we explained. The spiritual level, that you have to step it up. And I know a lot of people saying, oh, now he's going to want me to become more observant. Yeah, because that might be the point that is the breaking point, where that's stopping you from finding the other half, because the other half is in a much higher level. And from the heavens, they're not going to put you together because you're not in that level. So take that to consideration, and I always highly recommend, look in yourself, saying, where can I become more observant? Maybe I can become more strict in the laws of kosher. Maybe I can become more strict in my appearance in modesty. Maybe I should become more observant when it comes to mitzvot. Whatever it is, you know where you're holding, and needless to say that you yourself know where you kind of don't want to grow, because it's your comfort zone. Most people, they don't want to grow spiritually because it's going to already start stepping over their comfort zone. It's not so convenient to dress a certain way, or to talk a certain way, or to eat a certain way. But, extreme measures, extreme times call for extreme actions. And I know some people, and they say, listen, I need to get married. I need to find my other half. I'm not wasting another year, and another year. And in some cases, you don't know what's the expectations. The very high chances that Hashem says, I'm sorry to tell you, you wanna find your other half? Step it up. Step it up. I know you're already doing a lot, but step it up even more. And you already should talk directly with your spiritual guide, your rabbi, your madrich, madricha, to see what do you think I should grow. But I always highly recommend that when you make a self-assessment of yourself, where can I grow more? You can find many places that one can add more things in your spiritual service to Hashem. And of course, the second part, the approaching the date in the right mind frame, not to have so much high expectations, not to come with a list of demands, to be much more receptive, to see things in a more broadened way, and not to focus on something that is so imminent and right now. See how things are going to be in 10 years, how things are going to be in 20 years. When I was looking for a wife, but I was also looking for a mother for my kids. Because I knew a wife is one thing, but I'm going to have kids, Bezat Hashem, and I need them to have a good mother. I don't want to be a single father, chas v'shalom, not single that I'm divorced or widowed, single that I'm only the one who's pulling the weight here. The other half has to help in many, many things. Has to be my partner, not only in the house, outside of the house, in my business, in my spiritual growth. I looked constantly forward, because I said now is one level. How is it going to be in 10 years? How is it going to be in 15 years? How is it going to be in 20 years? Not too long ago, literally maybe a week or two ago, one of my kids pulled one of our, I know how it was. We were looking for a picture of my wife's engagement ring. I don't even know how we came up to that. My daughter was asking me something, and I said, pull the old albums there. I have to blow all the dust from there. It's like all the way on the top. And we looked at the engagement party and the period of when my wife and me got engaged. And we were looking at it. I was like, wow, look how I look. I look like I'm so young, and my wife looks like a little girl. And I was like, wow, it's not that it's like 592 years have passed, only 15 years. But you look back and say, wow, what changed in 15 years? And my wife and me were looking at the album, and I was like, look, just imagine where we were 15 years ago and where we now. How much life changed. How many scenes, how many things went into in our life in 15 years. Can write 17 books. So don't only look at how the situation is right now. Try to develop your imagination. How it's going to be in 5 years? How it's going to be in 10 years? How it's going to be in 40 years? Is that the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? Is that the person that's going to make me a much better person? Is that the person that what Hashem wants is His plan for me to be with? Is it going to be a good mother to my kids? Is it going to be a good spouse, a friend, an other half? So I have to take all this to consideration, and needless to say, to add the third and most important is to pray. You have to really pray to Hashem. Most people don't pray. Most people don't understand the power of prayer. Most people, they say 3.5 prayers and that's it, and they're done. And praying is one of the most powerful things, to talk to Hashem. I'm not talking about opening the book and praying Shacharit. That's amazing. You should do that too. But with your mouth, you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes out of your day. You isolate yourself from the reality. Turn your phone off. Turn your WhatsApp and Facebook off and sit for 10 minutes and talk to Hashem and say, Hashem, this is the situation. I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm depressed, I'm whatever it is, I'm disappointed, I'm giving up. Talk to Hashem, and you talk to Hashem every day. Because Hashem has a very good ear. He listens, and you know what? He's the only one who actually answers. Try that. Put it to action. You don't even know how powerful the power of prayer is. And needless to say, that you want to also pray for other people. Our sages say, "Amitpalel al chavero ne'enat chila." You pray for another person, you get answered first. It's very accustomed, a lot of people that they'll start praying, they'll pray if they want to get married, they'll start praying for you and for you and for you and for you. Give me all their names, I'll pray for you. We have a system in our institutes that we have a few people that they're praying for other people. And we have a whole list. Later on, if you want, you can write down on a piece of paper your full name. And we have certain times that we mention people's names, and when we go to this spot, Amuka, we mention names. We do a lot of things. Because why? Because when you pray for other people, then God loves when you pray for other people. And our sages say, you pray on another person, you'll get answered first. So you have a little bit of information tonight to put it into action. And the only thing that is left for me to add here is that I will bless you all to find your true soulmate. And that Hashem should open your eyes in a spiritual way, of course, that you're going to see things exactly how they are. And Hashem should bring your other half directly to you, and you should be wise enough to recognize that's the other half. That Hashem should give you the binah, the knowledge, the ability to see the other half in front of you, because many people don't see that. Many people, the other half is right in front of them, and he's a tow truck driver, and they don't want to marry him. So Hashem should bless you to have this extra wisdom, and to be able to see the blessing that Hashem sends in your direction. You should all merit to build a beautiful home, a Bait Ne'eman b'Israel, and the foundations of the Torah. You should merit to have families and kids, and kids and kids and kids, and banim uvnei banim, all oskim b'Torah v'mitzvot, and you should merit to build beautiful homes in the nations of Israel, and find your true other half that you should take you to your true place of perfection, that you can refine yourself, and that your marriages should be a base, a foundation of success and love and understanding. Mazel Hashem should bless you all to very, very soon at the right time find your other half and be blessed with everything that Hashem can give from His unlimited hands and generosity. And I hope to get many wedding invitations in the next couple months and couple years. I can't promise I'm going to make it to all the weddings, but I do try my best to show up to my students' weddings. That's when I came the first time here to London, is for one of my students' wedding. So, Bemet, I bless you all with great success, great happiness, and that Hashem should bless you to, next time that I see you, you come to me with an engagement ring, or at least with a wedding invitation, and I will gladly accept any good news coming in any form of the way. You can email it to me, you can mail it to me, you can send a plane in the sky saying I got engaged, whatever it is, as long as you all get married and live happily and grow spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And Bezal Hashem, Hashem should bless you all. Bakol mikol kol miyado הרחבה הפתוחה והמלאה לכול.